Diversity, Equity, and Anti-Racism Subcommittee meeting. Today's January 14th. Do I have a motion to start the meeting? Call to order.
So moved.
I think you can just call the meeting to order.
Are you sure? Because last time we took a vote.
Yeah, I don't think we need to take a vote. We know.
Okay,
Yeah,
that's
no,
wonderful. So
Good.
can I have a motion to accept the meeting minutes of the
Oh, sorry.
accept the
moved.
meeting minutes of November 30th, 2020.
So moved.
So
Second.
roll call vote. Member Bennett,
Yes.
Member Woodland,
Woodland, yes?
Member Christianbaum,
Christianbaum, yes.
Member Longbelio.
Longbelio, yes.
Anybody else I'm missing? Okay, and I vote yes, that's unanimous. Moving on to our next item on the agenda, the stress management and tolerance. And I believe Director Keenan has some information for us, which I'm really, really excited to hear, especially in this day and age. I think we all can benefit from this.
Absolutely. Thank you, Asma. Good evening, everyone. Hope you're all doing well. Yeah, all of the meetings that I've been a part of over the past few months, I've started out with a version of what I'm going to do here, and it's all related to basically our ability to handle stress, where we are in stress, and I thought about it in the context of our subcommittee, where we are having conversations that can be very difficult even on their own. There are a lot of events going on in the country that are hard to watch and stressful, between what happened at the Capitol and some other things. So just wanted to, as the director of SEL, first of all, it's very natural for me to do this, but we need to talk about both the head and the heart, as we're looking at events like this. So I just wanted to kind of engage in a conversation about that and provide just some visuals and some ideas that maybe will help us. And this won't take too long, but I'm going to kind of go through, and if people have things to add as we go, just interrupt me and jump in. I'll just get this to go to the next slide. So, so it's stress and stress tolerance, and looking at that and how it affects us. These are different visualizations for what stress would look like. This is from a child's perspective, kind of that spiral, and all the things swimming around. It's kind of a nice artistic approach to looking at what stress would feel like and be experienced. And just another third one there. So this comes right out of the trauma research that for trauma-informed teaching, and it's about the stress response, and this is for kids and adults. We are all impacted by stress in different ways, and what's nice about this one, if you can just take a second to look at it, is it's on a continuum on these axes. So we have ability. As our ability increases and as our demands that are made of us increase. So if we think about, if we have low demands and low ability, this is on this left side of like this blue rust out, kind of the freeze mode, up to optimum too. And that's something that maybe is easy to lose track of these days, is that there is actually an optimum level of stress, like where we're activated just enough to be effective and be good in our responsibilities and be meeting those. There's this cliff and going over the edge, reduced efficiency, reduced alertness, overload, difficulty concentrating, and kind of that downward spiral towards burnout. So I've been actually doing some staff meetings with principals lately, which I'd like to do more of. It's just, it's been really, really powerful, because we ask teachers to self-identify where they are at that moment, to say, where are you on this continuum? And they can either share it or not. The idea is really that they're kind of self-checking where they are. What we're hearing from everyone, kids and adults, is that they could be on the right side one day, on the left side another, and there's this really kind of spike that is in some ways pretty unpredictable, largely as a result of the pandemic, and world events certainly are compounding that. So
can I ask you something, Brendan, or do you want to wait till the end?
Oh, no, go right ahead. Yeah, jump in anytime, Asma.
So I'm just curious. I've heard this word burnout a lot, right? Especially in my industry. But I really just want it, I would like it defined. Does it, like, what does it mean? Does it mean that everything in red is true, and then it would be considered a burnout? Like, what exactly is burnout, and what is rust out? That's the first time I've heard of that.
Yeah, I know a lot of this is new, and so I don't have like the answer to that, but and people might have some ideas. What I would say, this is all very relative to the person, to their experiences, their coping skills, and the combination of being able to handle things, that ability. And so, that's actually a question we could open up to everybody, because I think it is very relative to the person. One has a different threshold.
I find that burnout is a lot of times when people stop enjoying the things that they were enjoying before. So one way to tell if somebody is burnt out is to be like, well, be pre-COVID, in the before times, find something that they enjoyed and ask, hey, you want to go do the thing? And if their answer is, no, I don't really want to do that thing. Oh man, you're in that burnout phase and you need some time, you need some time off or time out. And that's, that's what the timeouts are for, with kids too. It's not necessarily like you're in trouble, I want you to go over there. It's like you need some time to not be this burnt out because you clearly are not enjoying yourself anymore and you're throwing this tantrum.
Yeah, I guess that was my question. Was it also associated with depression, or just no longer interested in a particular activity? Right. I mean, that was my asking for that definition. Since it's been overused, it's a little bit confusing to me when people say burnt out.
I think depression is clinical.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
No, go ahead, Krista. No, go ahead.
I think depression is more like like every single day, and you can't get out of the burnout. So burnout is more like a temporary state that you don't want to get to because it's unhealthy. And you don't want to get to that place every day. But with self-care, for example, taking time off, sleeping longer, drinking more water, maybe exercising, you can get to the other side of burnout, which does not necessarily work for depression. More clinical.
Yeah.
What about rust out? Sorry, go ahead, Linda.
I was going to say, to me, an element of burnout is also, in addition to having stopped enjoying what you were doing, doing what you used to enjoy feels burdensome to you.
Yes. Yeah.
It feels burdensome, tiring, wearing, that sort of thing.
Absolutely. Yeah. And what strikes me about this too is sometimes we can be unaware that we're in burnout until maybe somebody tells us, or we're kind of falling behind in work or whatever it might be. So sometimes it can be a blind spot too, and that's why I'm trying to talk about this really directly with everyone that I have a chance to talk with, because it's recognizing where you are, and it's also saying like all of this is normal, right? This is a normal reaction to stress, and it's what the body does to react to stress. So it's the other idea of like this upward hill, the idea of falling, kind of spiraling down, but also there's a climb to get back to optimum. It's like it's a struggle. It takes effort to get back there. And resilience is going to be a little part of this too. How do people bounce back? But
out of curiosity, that list, is it usually done in that order, or is that something that's like?
I don't think so. I don't think it's hard and fast, really, Asima. It's more like this kind of describes like the process, and it's also not linear. I think that's maybe an important thing. It's there can be some bouncing around from like things are fine and then boom, but typically there are some warning signs too. And I'm just noticing the stress is just so high in everyone that I talk to. And I think it's when we have a language and like I think a framework to think about it in. I also think of this, this is all related to kind of what prompted our subcommittee to start too. You think about the kind of toxic stress that built up for so many of our students too. So Laura.
Yeah, I appreciate this information and this graphic, the artwork that you presented. I really feel is really encapsulates where we are right now in understanding the ramifications of our current lives and the situation that we find ourselves in, within this school district. It's clear to me that tensions are high. People are under a great deal of stress, and both teachers, students, I mean, we keep getting, email after email after email. It's not always bad news, but I mean, let's be honest, even under even those parents and children who are getting by and finding success right now, and the teachers who are finding success right now are doing so under a great deal of stress, personally, socially, educationally, and so on. And I might, personally feel like this is going to take a long time, a long slog to get out of. I mean, we're all going to, when the virus is over and everything goes back to normal, we're all going to be riding high for a while. Mm-hmm. But I think the long-term effects are something that we really need to be thinking about and managing and helping. I mean, we don't want our teachers to end up in that stage of burnout to the point where they are, considering alternate careers and early retirements, and perhaps even young kids who are thinking about career choices who are opting out. There's a whole ramification in the pipeline of education that we could feel the effects of. So I guess in just trying to see where we're heading with this conversation, I'm just wondering, I hear you're saying that you're having conversations with principals, and I think that is great, and I would encourage you to continue those lines of communications. But I'm very concerned about how this is getting disseminated to our staff, so that they understand loud and clear that we are interested and willing to work with them to try to manage some of this. And so I guess that's more of a systemic process question that I have, is where are we going to go? What decisions do we need to make as a body to facilitate a process that helps manage this situation and helps our teachers and our students come out of this situation, so that we can get back to optimum as quickly and efficiently as possible.
Absolutely. Yeah, and there's some, I'll just give you a quick answer to that, Laura, because you mentioned very nicely the different layers, right? And, we have the building administration, district administration. We also have the school counselors and psychologists. So we've been doing this, all through the pandemic, like using this framework, and that's been getting out to students and families that way. The other piece that's pretty new, not really that new, but we're going to be doing kind of monthly meetings. Daryl will share this with you all, but with the teachers that are optional, like town hall. We just had a town hall this week with the teachers at WREA. We'll be doing those monthly. So these types of things will be brought in because there's a question and answer period, but then there's also like, let's bring some kind of unifying ideas, which this is, and this is universal. I mean, like I see Kate, she was nodding her head. I mean, it doesn't matter what age, it could be a kid and an adult. This is pretty.
Would we be doing this to even the parents of the kids who are remote, because they might not be finding the benefit of this because the teachers won't be one-on-one with them. When I'm looking at this, I'm thinking of my own kids who honestly, for whatever scale they are on here, chose to be remote. With everything that they have gone through. So sometimes remote isn't a decision of the parents only, it's sometimes a decision of the child themselves based on this chart. So it might help if there was a session for the parents and kids who are choosing to be remote to also benefit from this information.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I was going to say that reflects some things I've heard myself. Even today, I sent an email to Daryl because I've gotten a lot of messages today as people are seeing the videos and things about they're helpful for the kids going back, but the kids remote are feeling very stressed, and their parents are feeling stressed, and how to deal with that. And I actually sent a message to Daryl letting him know some of the stuff I've been hearing, and kind of asking if we were going to do anything to kind of address that, as just even in general, to remind people there's people making different choices and why, and maybe how parents can help talk to their kids about some of that, which I know is beyond the committee's focus, but very relevant to this graph and discussion, because I'm hearing it, and their kids that are staying remote are really kind of getting stressed out, and the parents are getting stressed out figuring out how to deal with it. And I don't think we've addressed that even in general in anything we've sent out. So
well, in one way, yeah, absolutely, Malaya. One thing we did back in September, just to remind everyone, I put together a webinar that UMass Medical's trauma trainers, a trauma trainer, psychologist, and then a medical doctor about raising kids in COVID. So like, things like that, I really think those opportunities are valuable to people, and they're also something that we want to do more of. There's a lot of different ways to provide support, and I just have to, like, in an honest moment here, it's really tough. It's such an enormous task in a district this big to really feel like we're making a positive impact on families and kids with such a difficult pandemic. So, but that is, but
my point today was just if in the message that he sent out, which again is beyond this committee, so I really shouldn't focus on it too long, but in the message he sent out, it was all the logistical stuff and we got all that buttoned up, but there wasn't anything in general just about, kind of the social emotional side, and reminding you might want to have these conversations with your kids, or these are some resources that might help. And it can apply to a lot of this, but that's a different discussion.
Absolutely.
Brendan, I'm sorry. I feel it necessary to mention that this conversation about, how do we make an impact with our kids? I mean, this sounds like, budgetary, procedural, making sure that we have enough people staffed in our buildings who are, working with our kids. We have enough staff in our buildings to, work as a team within our building. So I guess, it's one thing to identify the issue, and then it's something else to then say, okay, well, we need policies and we need people, in our budget to accomplish these priorities. And so I would just urge you to, in the conversations that happen with decisions about, budgets and so forth, that we have these difficult conversations so that we do put the right people in the right place to effectively meet the demands that we're finding ourselves in, now and when the virus is over.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And Business and Finance has budget discussions on their agenda next week. So I'm curious to see where that goes.
This is a great
Brendan.
presentation with so many comments on your first slide, Brendan.
I know. Well, it's great, and I appreciate you all. Like, I really, this struck me as like very kind of relevant to what we're doing, because, just so much of it is stressful on its own. And, thinking of the kids that we heard from back in the spring, all very related. This is just another way of thinking about stress tolerance too. And it has a numerical value associated with, like, 5 being optimal and being up or down. So the nice part about having the number, especially with, working with kids even, is, you can ask a question like a therapeutic technique with a kid is like, if they're at an 8, well, what do you think would get you to a 5? And then strategies there. It also works really well with adults. Sometimes I do this at the beginning of a meeting and at the end, and just have them kind of write it down. They don't really have to share. We could do that with our own school committee meetings maybe. The goal really is to be more back to center by the end. That's always what it should be. So I'll go through a few of these kind of quickly because I overplanned as always, but I'll share this with everyone too. And just this idea of focusing on the helpers too. This has been, there's been a lot of questions from teachers about how to talk about difficult world events, and Mr. Rogers had some pretty nice gems over the years. So that's just a nice one to focus on the helpers. The idea of resilience too, bouncing back. I think this is a really good definition of it. It's the capacity to survive, adapt, and find meaning despite hardship and adversity. And there's many different ways to be resilient. It's supported by our families, communities, cultures, and society. And it's this emphasis on relationships. That's what they find in all this resilience research. People that go through really terrible experiences, trauma, it's supportive relationships that bring them back, to even better than they were before, functioning wise. And
resilience, just going to jump in there real quick. My favorite thing about that is that people can go through absolutely horrific things, But if it was built into their culture to expect those absolutely horrific things, they don't experience trauma because they have a different resiliency already built into them. So, for example, there was a tsunami that went out, and there were people that were visiting, like vacationing there, and the tsunami took over, and then there were people who lived there, and the tsunami came through, and the people who lived there did not experience trauma symptoms, had huge resiliency, and the people who were visiting, huge trauma symptoms and not much resiliency. So it is definitely, like you said, culture, society, families, making sure that you have that support there, and empathy. So it can come from not just your family system, not just the person sitting next to you, but if somebody gives some sort of comfort and empathy and that validation to what you're going through and what you're feeling at that time that you're feeling those awful things, the effects of that awful thing will be far diminished. So keeping that in mind when our kids are having a hard time too, meeting them at a very empathetic place super changes the outcome.
Yeah.
Can I make a comment on that comment? I'm a little concerned because, I understand what you're saying, but I've actually heard this from my own child and it really disturbed me because, being bullied. And I remember, his sibling being bullied, and he said, it's okay. You've been bullied before. You can handle it better now. And I felt like that kind of like thinking of, because you have this resiliency because you're used to something or whatever, like it doesn't always mean that that person will necessarily take what their culture or what they have experienced before as part of becoming resilient or becoming, I just feel it's a very slippery slope when we define it that way. So I hope that there's a better way to define it. But I know what you're saying. If there's an expectation, then you're kind of built in to say, okay, it happened, let's move on. But it's a very slippery slope, in my opinion, to have that kind of view, because then it can be used in the incorrect way.
That's more attached to their person. When it's bullying, like that is, they're being attacked, their person is being attacked. Whereas what I was thinking more like, and what I've been taught in all of my training, is that trauma, for example, was an environmental trauma that they went through. It wasn't that someone was attacking them. It's not like you can teach someone to expect.
Okay, I just want to know. I just wanted to make sure that since we're taping and people are listening, we're not meaning, because like I said, I've just been part of the conversation where it has been interpreted in a different way.
That's awful. I'm so sorry. That's terrible. No.
Linda, you're going to jump in, I think, right?
Oh, I was just going to say, a tsunami doesn't have motivations. It's not a good or evil thing. It's just a thing that happens, a natural force. Whereas bullying is not. That's a choice that somebody has made to force on another person, and that's absolutely wrong. And that shouldn't be, acceptable, or someone shouldn't get used to it or anything.
Right.
Anything like that. But I think remembering what things have motives and what things just are.
Yep,
That's
exactly.
True. That's true.
Thank you for clarifying. I just want to make sure everyone listening has it clarified.
Yeah, and I first of all, I love this conversation, so I don't want to rush it at all. So this last bullet I thought was really relevant to us in school committees, subcommittees. Systems and institutions are key to promoting resiliency through ensuring access to rights, resources, and representation. That's like what we've been doing on this subcommittee, right? Looking at policy. We'll be looking at a pretty complex policy tonight. So I kind of like thinking about our work as promoting resiliency and providing access. I think that is what it is, and this gave the language to it. So, all right, so just a couple more. Let's see. I'll skip that one here. And this came from the American Psychological Association. So I'd like the way this is broken down. Resilience is made up of realistic expectations of the present and future. That reminds me of what Krista was just saying too, kind of expecting, when things are like difficult circumstances will come up, kind of understanding that. Innovation with the resources at hand and making meaning, locating yourself in a bigger context. Think about that in light of the pandemic. Very difficult to find meaning in such heavy tragedy that we've been surrounded by, but people are still trying to do that even during. So not sure if anybody wants to mention anything here.
I think we're all struggling with the realistic expectations part. I think that's where, as members of this community and our kids and students are probably struggling with that, because we don't know what the future holds and we're still kind of making our way through the present.
Yeah, I think that's
I would
kind
agree
of,
too with
go ahead, Linda.
with the innovation with resources at hand. There's a resourcefulness angle that I think is valuable, but then there's that other flip side of what's been going on during the pandemic of everybody should be learning another language, everybody should be writing the great American novel, and like that's or for us, education, the state of education, all the cards are up in the air. We get to put them down as they fall down, and we can rearrange them right now. And it's fundamentally untrue, but there's this expectation that here's this great opportunity to do it, but we're trying to be realistic, and we only have so many resources at hand. And I think that those two steps really have been getting swapped in a lot of places where people think innovate now, it doesn't matter that we don't have the resources, and it gets mixed up. And I feel like that's been the push and pull over the past several months in our district. Personally, just the public perception, what's been going on in our meetings and other discussions. And that's my take on this, is that I think this is a really good way to break it out and to see where maybe there's some dysfunction or disjunction. I'm not sure which one is more applicable.
Absolutely.
What I was going to say is that I think what I was talking about a few minutes ago falls under the expectations piece. Logistics are one piece, but the other piece is everyone's doing the best we can. It's not going to look like whatever you think. I mean, because it's going to be different. There's going to be, time. It's going to take some time for everyone to adjust to the changes that are coming this week. A lot of people, I think, are just thinking, I mean, even if they know cognitively, I think a lot of people are just having their head, it's going to go back to normal because the kids are in school and that's what everyone wants. Psychologically, that's part of the reality of a situation like this. I mean, I studied psychology. I have enough to know that. It's just human nature. But I think we've done a good job with the, what the class will look like part. But I think the expectations of just reminding people to consider that and the it's not necessarily going to be like the before times, even though you're in the same building. We could say that 100 times. It's probably still, people want it to be like the before times because they need that on some level. I think a lot of people, and It's not. So I think that's one of the challenges of kind of where we sit right now with everything we've talked about.
Right.
And the expectations are, I think part of our role is to help remind people of what the expectations are, or at least to think about them differently, because the default is the before time, and that's not what we are facing for anyone, unfortunately. And so that makes it very challenging, I think.
Absolutely. And the disappointment that people can feel when situations or actions of people like me that are leading the district aren't to what they would expect. That's tough to be on the receiving end of, but it's also very difficult for families too. I
mean, I think we've all gotten the emails that beg us to do one thing and then we do it in a meeting and then get a flood of emails saying, but that's not what we wanted, or do something different in the same 24 hours. And I think that's kind of just where everyone is, because everyone wants it to be like before, and that's not possible. And so finding the way to the new is challenging.
Absolutely.
And managing that. So
it is. Yeah. Laura, I saw you were going to say something, I think.
Yeah, and I mean it's not super important, but I feel compelled to say, you know, that this presentation brings up for me this whole concept of perception and reality. Is that you know, what a student perceives, what a parent perceives, and what a teacher perceives, what we perceive in ourselves. You know, it's our reality, and that may not be the reality, but it is our reality, and so those emotions are real for the individual. You know, here I am talking to you. This is your life's work, right? But I mean, I'm just trying to remind us all that you know, whether we're hearing from a parent who's on the brink, or a child, you know, who's just trying to make it through remote class, or just to graduation, or whatever the case might be, that their perception right now is their reality, and you know, we have to understand that whatever we're on the receiving end, whenever we're on the receiving end, you know, we just need to understand that it might not be the reality that I feel.
Yeah.
You know, whether that's more or less, it's just you know, that's where we're at with this thing. And I think the comment that you made, Malia, is that, you know, everybody wants to get back to before times, right? And we all have this burning desire, and the longer this goes, the more we feel that desire. And it's gonna take a long time. It's just gonna, you know, and that's unfortunately the reality that, you know, even I don't like to hear sometimes.
Yeah.
I also think that people are trying to turn the now times into feeling as much like the before times as possible. And so, for example, you know, having a full day of school, you know, in front of a computer, and like fighting so hard for a full day of school, right? But then, you know, okay, but then the reality sets in, a full day of school in front of a computer. Oh, that doesn't feel so good, and the kids don't like it so much, right? And they remember, oh yeah, in the before times we hated screens. So it's like, it's this very push and pull that we all want it so badly, that we want it exactly the way it was before. Let's do everything we can to make it the way it was before, but with the situation at hand, with the tools, with the restrictions, it's hard to make it that way. And so that makes it that much more stressful when we're trying to accomplish that, right? For anyone going through that, they're going to hit themselves on the other side of that Yerkes-Dodson curve that you showed before.
Yeah.
Just a quick question, Brendan. Do we have any plans for having another webinar, you know, available for families and students and teachers in the community?
We don't have plans right now, but we did it once and we can do it again. Actually, the planning of that initially, there was a lot of tech stuff that we had to work out, and we've got all that worked out now. So we have people that are willing to do those trainings too. So I'd be interested in topics that you know, you're hearing from people that you're talking to. I mean, I can kind of guess what it would be, and you can see in this presentation probably be around stress. It could be. So yeah, we could definitely do that again too, because I think it's time well spent. It's something that people can go back to. The last one we did, so funny, like it ended up on like the Worcester News, and like we didn't really have time to promote it, but it just word spread because I think it got to the core of what was on people's minds at that point. Like, how do I do this parenting thing during COVID? Yeah.
Is there something that we need to do as a body or as a full committee to make that happen? Like, do we have to make a motion to like demand you do that, or is just something that you can take the baton now by our?
I could take it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I answered emotions, but I also answered a logic and reason and a quick like ask. Yeah, absolutely.
Can I suggest a topic?
Sure.
Well, actually, let me dial that back because I lost it. But I had something in mind and it just went away somewhere. But I was gonna piggyback on something else that Laura was saying about perceptions, about our own perceptions, and I just want to say that this upcoming transition is going to alter a lot of our all of our kids' perceptions of school fundamentally. The kids going into the building physically, right, their perception will be changed. The kids who are at home and staying remote only are going to be have a new vision of their classroom in front of them that they have to potentially fight to interact with, whereas before it was a different kind of gaining attention. And then it'll be a different kind of response of, hopefully positive reinforcement of wanting to be more involved. Just at dinner, I started peppering my kids with remember, when things happen on Tuesday, you're going to be logging into your class. It's going to be different. Don't be surprised if you start having new feelings, and we can talk about it. We're there, but it's going to be new. And so I think that our youngest kids, it's the kind of thing that needs to fall to parents, but it also has to be informed from the school district on what to expect and how to help our kids succeed with interacting. We have to be this medium, an extra medium for our kids to access their education. But
Absolutely. Yep. I totally agree. So I'll just, go ahead. Go ahead, Kristen.
So the programs, so you were suggesting that you were saying that we could suggest, program ideas for the teachers, or I'm sorry, I kind of.
Well, we have different audiences. Well, the thing that I liked about what we did with the webinar was that it got to everybody. It was good for teachers. It was good for parenting type. It was centered around parenting, but it was really around supporting kids generally.
Right.
So, I mean, I'm always looking to see how many things we can cover, how many stakeholder groups we can hit with any event. So, but, we could also look at, doing some for teachers, the thing is, it is still a bit of work to get those going. So I have to just, manage expectations there, I suppose, about the frequency.
Yeah.
But I think the time is right to do another one. We're late, to be honest with you.
Absolutely. Yeah. But I think that it's going to be important for parents and teachers to, yes, know that they're going to be supporting the students, but to support themselves first, and really focus on taking care of their emotional, mental, physical well-being, because if they're 100%, then they're going to be able to be there 100% for the kids.
Yep.
Whereas if we're focusing with these programs or the presentation, like, oh, you can do this for your kids, and you can do this for your kids, and you can do this for the kids, and you can do this, their emotional well-being is going to diminish. They're going to get stressed out, and it's going to be even harder for them to actually go through those processes with those kids.
Absolutely.
So if I could offer that as a suggestion, that would be.
Absolutely.
That's in there.
Totally
Put that in there.
And Kate, I see your hand is up there.
Yeah, so I just had sort of a thought on some of these presentations. I know what other schools across the state are doing is they're doing 3 separate sets of presentations. And so they're doing one for students on dealing with stress during the pandemic, and then one for teachers from the perspective of a teacher, and then one for parent on the perspective of teachers. And I know a lot of this curriculum is being developed, and I know a few other schools that are looking for it, and I could probably look into that, but I know a lot of schools are trying to do it around the date where we all decided to go remote last year, that like March 12th or 13th date. I know the 13th is a Saturday, but they're all sort of looking into doing stuff around that date to sort of like commemorate like everything that the students have been through and like the district's been through. And so I wondered if we could get something like that sort of. I know the March is sort of close at this point, but something like that to sort of commemorate all we've been through over the year, and looking into ways we can keep encouraging students to go forward and gaining these new coping skills. Because I haven't seen a presentation like this. I'm not going to lie. I've gone to my guidance counselor with high stress levels before, and I've never seen anything like this. So I think it's really important we get something like this to students.
Yeah, it's a framework too. And that's really good ideas, Kate, all around. I mean, so I need to think a little bit about what it might end up being at the end, but I'll probably be bouncing some ideas off of some of you before we take the next steps. So make sure I'm on the right track. So why don't I give myself a 5 to 8 minute ending time here, just because I know we have a policy to start to look at. And actually right at the end. So this is just a nice visual about, and you can take a second, but the outer ring, circle of concern, that yellow circle of influence, and then circle of control. This has a lot of different ways to apply. I mean, we could think of it with school committee and what you're all charged with and your roles. I think about it in my position, and I definitely have in the circle of concern a lot of different things that are going through my mind at any moment about what I have to do and what I'm responsible for. The nice part about the position is I do have a pretty wide influence. In a circle of control too, there are some things that are out of my control too, just like all of us in our position. So I just thought that was a nice thing to think about. This actually, some of these materials, just so you know, come out of that group that I've been working with in Worcester, the Supporting Change Advocates group, that the racial equity group that I've been going to monthly meetings with. So it's actually been really great. I could share with you all offline, but really well done. And the last thing is just this creating a culture of care. And I think about this at the school level, at the district level, school committee. It's an ongoing process, and these outer circles kind of say what makes it up. So a space for reflection, strengthening connection. It goes back to relationship all the time. Cultivating calm. Thought of that one as very timely. There's not much calm around these days at any level, right? Things seem very hectic, even though we're mostly at home, mostly isolating. There's kind of chaos, a lot of places, and kids pick up on that too, like we all do. And this last one, supporting hope and meaning too. So it's a nice little way to tie it up, I suppose. So I don't know. I was thinking of today's meeting, and just how really we're working on all of these goals in our own way in the subcommittee. So I know I went a little bit longer, as always. I think the last time I did a presentation was 2 hours, so I did better this time. But it was a really
It was our fault, Brendan. It wasn't your fault.
no, it was great. That's no complaint. It really was as always, a really good conversation, and I hope it was helpful. And thank you all for your thoughtful ideas.
Are you going to be sending? Yeah, I can't talk. See, will you send us those slides?
Will do.
Sorry.
Yep, I'll have Rebecca send it right out, and in the short term, I'll put it into the chat.
Thank you.
I think that's okay to do. Yeah. Okay. Great. So that's it for me.
In that case, we can move on to our next item on our agenda, which I believe, I'm opening it up now, is to continue reviewing the policy 6437, promoting civil rights and prohibiting harassment, discrimination, and hate crimes. Do I have a motion to start that discussion?
So moved.
Second.
Sounds good. Let's go down the roll call. Member Gustafson.
Yes.
Member Bennett.
Yes.
Member Woodland.
Yeah.
Member Christenbaum.
Yes.
Member Longbalio.
Yes.
And I vote yes, so that's unanimous. I believe, Brendan, will you be able to share your screen with that particular policy? And just as a note, this is a long policy, so please don't think we're trying to get this done and rush through it in one meeting. It may take us several meetings to really do this justice and go through it, line by line, making sure that it's what we would, our best effort forward, what we'd want it to be. So just letting you know, and we'll try to see if we can get through this by 8:30 so that you guys can actually get to bed. I don't want us reviewing this when we're dead tired. I'd really like to have, our best effort when we're reading this so that we're not too tired when we are. So let's start from the beginning.
Yeah, and just a few resources that are available to us that I do have at the ready. This will take time, as Asima said. This is the policy we have now. I also have at the ready the MASC policies on screen. that we'll share out after the meeting with everyone. And also Laura shared with us some other examples of policies from another district. So I can pull those up on the screen if we wish to reference them. Okay, and Asma, did you want to lead us through this? Or
can I make a comment about this?
Yeah.
I don't necessarily I don't disagree with having a lengthy policy in and of itself. However, what the research that I've done, and I think we had the beginning of this conversation before, is that it seems to me that other districts, at least a few, and perhaps the association, has broken the policy into smaller chunks to make them, I think, a little bit more focused and less broad in their scope, and to ensure that it's a little bit more digestible. And so, you know, I would encourage us to explore, well, we could just go through this and plow forward and just accept that this is a very long policy and we're going to pour through this one policy. I would suggest that we consider the alternative, which is to do what has been done by MASC and other districts, and break it down into more specific and more direct chunks, to make it a little bit more easier to digest, and to make sure that we are addressing completely the various aspects of what this big chunky policy is trying to do. I think it's an important policy, but I think that it's huge. And so that's my 2 cents there before we actually plow forward.
I was going to say the same thing, actually. I think I wasn't at the last meeting, but I remember the meeting before that, realizing that as well. And I think the minutes from your last meeting included 3 or 4 different policies, but I know that there are others as well. And also, I don't think, in the ones that I have seen, not all of them have the degree of process that is in this policy in terms of due process. I mean, there's, I think, one general harassment policy that had due process because it was required by law, but most of them made reference to, you know, state laws that would apply or other things, but they didn't have this degree of detail in terms of process either.
Right.
So I guess my concern is that there's a lot in this and it's overwhelming for even me to read. I mean, I've read it, so it's fine, but I think we may be better served to have it in different pieces to make it more accessible, but also to help us think about how to attack it, because there may be other relevant policies that touch on things that are in this that we haven't even identified yet, because we just pulled up, at least I went to the discrimination section. I didn't pull up every policy, but I suspect that both MASC and our own existing policies probably have a couple others that overlap with things in this and might require some research to kind of sort that out a little bit.
Can I make a suggestion on a process for this? And feel free to say this isn't how it's done or whatever. But would it be worthwhile to go through the MASC sample policy on harassment and then just kind of put it side by side and make sure that everything that's in this 6437 that is in regards to harassment is covered in that MASC, and then whatever isn't in our policy, or I'm sorry, that isn't in the MASC policy but is remaining in 6437, then we figure out where to divvy it up. Does that make any sense, or is that just not what we do?
I think it makes sense, Linda. I'm only one person, though.
Yeah, it makes sense, but I'm just a little concerned about reviewing MASC and then reviewing ours. We're talking probably more than just a few meetings. So is there any way we can
I
kind
guess
of
one of
fast track that a little?
I mean, I would be okay with taking that as an assignment outside of this meeting to just cross between those that look at the MASC one and compare it against ours specifically through the harassment policy and kind of dividing out what's left over in our policy that doesn't fall under the heading of harassment.
Mhm.
Because I mean, it is three, four very big topics that I think are better served somewhere else. And the other, yeah, so I don't mind doing that document
Yeah.
comparison outside of the meeting and have it ready to present at the next meeting, if that's okay by you guys.
Yeah.
It is okay. I would think that would require a motion if that's the case.
So moved. I think
Second,
it's a great idea.
So that would call a roll call vote. Member Gustafson.
Oh, no, we need to have a conversation about this.
Sure.
Yeah.
I didn't the conversation. I thought you guys were ready. Go ahead.
So I agree with, so what I'm hearing is Linda is suggesting that she would be willing to address the harassment, the MASC harassment policy and cross-reference our policy on harassment with that policy to ensure that it's complete, thorough, and up to date. Is that what I'm hearing?
yeah,
Right. I think she's saying that she's going to review it to see that we're not either repeating something and that we are in the same compliance with what they're doing and that we're not. I mean, I'm assuming that's what you were saying.
So
Like the
that's
difference,
not
a
what-
diff between what they are.
I don't think I can do the compliance part. I think that needs to go to some kind of legal review, which I am not possible. That's not my, that I can't do that.
Yeah.
But what
sure
I'm
that
looking at is just the,
open, to be honest. I'm not sure that this is something that we need to vote on, to be honest. I think that committee assignments to review a policy outside of a meeting and then report out can just be an assignment. I'm not sure that it requires.
Does it, Brendan? Would you know that? Does it require?
No,
Because
Laura's-
we decided
Laura's
to
right.
discuss it. So discuss it here.
Yeah, certainly doesn't need to be a motion.
If it doesn't need to be, we don't need to. So, but if there's more discussion on exactly what Linda is tasked to do, that's fine.
Well, I don't know if Linda was, I don't want to speak for you, Linda, but the way I heard that was, and the way I was thinking about it was not necessarily that Linda would do all of the work, but that was our starting point, and then perhaps some of the rest of us would look at some of the other topical areas that we have lumped into this very big policy. Like I know there's sexual harassment, there's disability harassment, there's,
Right.
I mean, 4 or 5 different topics that we have lumped in. Hate crimes is listed separately. I don't know where that falls right now in the current language because this policy is so old.
Yeah.
I think a lot of that falls under other umbrellas.
so what I was suggesting is that I would go look at the MASC, look at ours, pull all of the harassment topic sentences and information from ours that matches up with MASC, and then leave you guys with what's left in that policy.
I see.
Right. That was what I understood.
Decide from there. I mean, and I think that we can do that further division concurrently. I think that we know enough about this policy to know that, we've got to look at the non-discrimination policies that are lumped into this supposedly right now. I actually, in my reading of it, I'm not quite sure. And then I had a question too of if we should pull out the students and staff responsibilities section, and do we want to create a students responsibilities and rights policy that MASC has a policy on that's a bit more comprehensive of the push and pull of your rights and your responsibilities. You know, so what I was saying is I would just pull out the harassment parts, because I think that that's distracting from the other pieces that this policy is meant to address, because harassment is quite large. So I'll take out that big stuff, and somebody else hopefully can work on the other pieces.
So I would be happy to do the non-discrimination. I think it's AC under MASC.
Oh, let me look.
It is. I made a note before the meeting.
Yeah, it is.
AC. And the harassment is ACAB, if anyone needs that.
And then, what's the, and then the one underneath that, AC.
So Laura, you're
There's,
signing up for which one? Which?
So AC.
AC is general non-discrimination.
General non-discrimination. I would be happy to take on that one.
Okay.
To cross-reference there.
And ACAB is the harassment in general, which they lumped sexual harassment into in the MASC policy.
Yeah, and I know not all districts do. I think
not all do. That's what they did, but we could keep them separate for sure. But the other two that they have under that subsection are sexual discrimination and disability, or non-discrimination on the basis of sex and non-discrimination on the basis of disability.
Right.
I can take the one on non-discrimination on basis of disability if folks want.
Okay.
Unless you would rather, Malia.
No, I'm happy to do whatever, but I also have huge budget discussions coming up, so I'll do whatever you all want me to do.
Okay.
Not huge. I shouldn't say that. I'm happy to do whatever you all want me to. Let me know.
Linda Longbilio took the non-discrimination based on disability. Linda Willen, you had taken.
I'm taking ACAB, and just so you know, Esma, I don't know if this is clear. I'm taking notes for the minutes as well, so I'll have all the assignments.
Okay.
Down.
Yep. Thank you.
Yep. I'm happy to do the sex if you'd like. I think it's pretty short, but I don't know. I haven't looked.
Malia, if you do the sexual harassment, is that the one you're speaking about?
It's the one labeled ACA.
Yep.
It's non-discrimination on the basis of sex. I have not read the whole thing recently, so I don't remember everything that's in it.
Yeah, it's here on the screen. So
yeah,
I would. So I can't see it on the list there, but one I think is also connected to it is some districts have policies on gender identity support.
Yeah.
And I would feel like in 2021, if we miss that opportunity to incorporate that, then we would be remiss.
Yeah. I think even the language of just saying it's based on sex is somewhat outdated and in need of clarification, but that's just me.
Yeah.
We can certainly discuss that. I wouldn't want to decide for everyone, but
but
what I envision is looking more closely at whatever area we have at the MASC policies, because they're not all in this section. Some of the other policies touch on these things, and also our own existing policies that might also touch on these things that are not in this harassment policy. So we may have various pieces to bring into the discussion.
Yeah, we're trying to tame this policy so that it's more manageable, more user-friendly. I mean, it's a bit of a beast at the moment. So.
But also address the things in it in some other way that's more updated.
Yes.
So Malia, I just want to make sure I'm clear. Are you going to also look up the gender identity support aspect of this?
I think they're related. I think it's hard to separate them, honestly.
Yeah, I just wanted to double check.
So I'm happy to.
Did we miss any sections, or are they all accounted for?
We have disability, right? We have that one accounted for. We have non-discrimination. We have sex, disability on the basis of discrimination on the basis of sex, right?
Mm-hmm.
What about sexual harassment? Is that
Yeah,
just under harassment?
Yep.
Okay.
it is in the MASC policy, but I guess we need to decide if we want to keep it that way or not. But
I mean, I was planning on investigating that along part with my review, so I can do that. Or if somebody wants to peel that piece out, that's fine by me too. Whatever. We're in another friendly standoff position. So.
Friendly standoff.
However people want to do it, I'll be happy.
Yeah. Well, I also could offer on all of these to kind of just be involved as needed too, and just pull me in and just let me know.
If you have, I think if you have, I don't know how to word this. I don't want to create extra work. If you have thoughts related to these areas that are relevant to what we might be researching or documents you think may be useful,
yeah.
I don't want to create a burden with all of us emailing you, but
you can. It wouldn't be a burden.
Figure that out.
Yeah.
I'm sure you do. I'm sure you and our counselors have resources we're not familiar with, or practices that aren't documented in our policies currently, but might be.
Well, I'd say
being used
as you're doing, I guess your research and comparison. Just reach out if there are questions that come up, and I'll chase them down.
So one thing that I had wanted to ask you, Brendan, and I emailed you, but it was so close to the meeting that I didn't expect time for a response. But I am curious about the district's implementation of like the harassment policy and procedures, like the investigation, reporting a claim, and so on. If that is not accurate, if the current policy doesn't accurately reflect what you guys are doing in practice, then that would be really good to know. And my hunch is that the policy is more outdated than whatever the practice would be, but I've been wrong before. So
yeah, it does need to be updated. The quick answer to that, so we have reporting here, and then there's also investigation. The investigation procedure we did in the bullying prevention intervention plan is transferable. So that is like a best practice for investigation. So if we use that as our guide, that's and if we could even reference the process in the bullying plan to make it more streamlined. But that really is most current.
I mean, that's a question that I had in general that I don't know if we can solve now, but that was a general question I had. Do we need to have the process in every policy we have about these topics, or is there some way that we can have the policy and then, because I don't know, there's pros and cons to having it listed in everything, but I think it makes it very lengthy. Or is there some general way that we can create a document somewhere in the district that has a process document that doesn't need to be in the policies, because process may change if laws change, if best practices change, but policies may not need to be as changed as often. Plus, it makes it very lengthy. So I guess I'm curious as a whole what direction we might want to take with that. It might be a question for further discussion.
I mean, my recommendation is to make it simple and just say the investigation process laid out in the bullying prevention intervention plan will be used for harassment for all of these. Because it doesn't change. I mean, it's about protecting the victim, taking measures while the investigation's happening to make sure there's not further harassment or bullying. So it really is all the same. And so I'm for that, because I think then people that are doing these investigations, including me, get into a routine and understand what they need to do.
Are you the, I forget what they called it. Are you the district person that has to investigate all of these?
Yes.
They call it something different.
Equity coordinator?
Yes.
Yes, thank you.
Yes. That's
Lucky you.
You get all the fun jobs.
That's hat number 125.
It's all part of the fun. So
can I suggest one other avenue we might want to consider researching?
Mm-hmm.
If we are up to date on the listed of protected classes, I believe we're not up to date on this policy I had looked it up. Our policy 6631, I think, is the non-discrimination policy we have, and that does not match the footer at the bottom of our policy webpage. But it was updated in 2019. And so I just didn't know if we would want to expand what we want to consider putting in, how to expand what we list in the harassment policy or the non-discrimination policy, or
Which policy did you just reference, Linda?
6631.
Okay, thanks.
I wrote down the number, not the name.
60. Why am I missing this?
It's all the way at the bottom of your screen.
Oh. Okay. I don't know. It's just something. There we go. This one right now.
Yeah. Okay. So then that's part.
Sorry. Yep.
I mean, that's been something divvied up, but
Let's see the date on this one.
it's recent.
A few years ago. And just a reminder, I think we still have a motion on the floor too. Correct?
Do we need to rescind that motion?
Yes, we do.
Yeah, I think we need to.
Whoever made it needs to rescind it, I think.
Oh, right. I had it.
Yeah.
I think I had it as Linda Longbaleo, and I had seconded.
I think technically we have to. Don't want to confuse
We have
you.
to. Yeah, go ahead.
Technically, we
Don't
have
say
to.
Gordy and not
cons-
Malia.
What? What?
Sorry, that might have crossed the line. I said don't call Gordy. Don't say Gordy and not.
No, I wasn't going to say that, but I think that we have to technically agree to not discuss it or agree to withdraw it. I don't know. Agree to let it be withdrawn or something like that. Whatever.
Right.
I'm
right.
not really that picky. Don't mind me.
Yeah. Was it my motion originally? I think I thought I was the second, but
Yeah.
I'm happy to rescind it or request to withdraw.
Yeah, I think that's what you do, and then we
Right.
agree to the withdrawing of it, because once you discuss it, it belongs to the group. That's my recollection.
Got it. Okay, then I'll say I was the one who made the motion, and I'll request to withdraw the motion.
Do we have a second to that request?
Second.
I don't know if we
Yeah.
have a second, but
I
sure.
think because is it a request? Yeah.
I think
Anyway,
it's a
let's go down the
request.
roll call.
Yep.
Member Gustafson,
Yes.
Member Bennett,
Yes.
Member Woodland,
Yes.
Member Christenbaum,
Yes.
Member Longbaleo,
Yes.
and I vote yes. That's unanimous. So I thought it was going to be a long discussion going through this.
That was 2 minutes. Nice job, everyone.
Yes.
All right.
Well, for our new business, we were going to talk about when our next meeting is. Let me just see what our agenda is. Let me just check again.
Yeah.
Yes, for our next meeting. But I think the people who have taken on these tasks, what works for you? When do you think you will have time to have that ready before we decide just a random date? Do you need a few weeks?
I need an
Couple weeks?
optimal amount of stress so that I can be most effective.
That was a good application of
You're
what we
thinking. I
learned
know
tonight.
you're thinking of that chart.
I need at least a couple weeks because we have a budget meeting next week. So I'm looking at when our next school committee meeting is the 25th. So I think after that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because I know there's going to be budget discussion somewhere in there.
Mm-hmm.
So
What
that puts us
about the
probably into February.
4th. Is that the 4th enough for? We only heard from 2 people who took on some of the tasks.
The 4th should work for me.
It looks all right.
Yeah.
Okay. If there's no objection, let's mark the calendars for the 4th.
Okay. Got it.
Yes, sounds good. One thing I did want to mention is I was asking Director Keenan today to come up with a template email. There's a lot of emails that I get. I'm sure you guys are also maybe getting of a lot of people in our community want to get involved with what our subcommittee is doing. But there's only so much that we can have the public join in. So I was asking for like a template email about when and where they can hear our recordings, since we're no longer going to be airing this live. How can they get involved? Different interests of how they can get involved, because not everything can go through the subcommittee. So just detailed information of we can pass along to people who are asking us, because I get emails, I'm sure you are too, of people interested in joining and asking how can we help. So just so that we give a the same information and have the same that we're giving out to anybody who's asking.
Point of information, I didn't realize we were not going to be live anymore. When did that happen?
That's Holden TV. I'm not sure, but it's not live, but it'll be up on our YouTube channel pretty shortly afterwards. So I'm not sure much beyond that there.
Makes sense. It's probably too hard to keep track of. There's a lot of our meetings, but I like the YouTube because people can go back and watch it.
Yeah.
I think that's been one of the positives out of the pandemic, that all of our subcommittee meetings are now accessible, that I can even watch them all, and I appreciate that.
I know.
I have a related question though, Brendan. I know you are very tied up with all the COVID things, but is there any update on the general task force discussion that I know you were talking about creating for the district or getting involved in?
For the racial equity?
Yes, whatever. I forgot what you were calling it, but I know there was talk of that.
Yeah, there's not an update right now, and that's tied into the bigger work of bringing the outside partner in. I don't have an update on that right now.
Because I think that is one of the umbrella avenues of trying to answer some of the questions of how other people can get involved on a regular basis.
Right.
I agree, because there's no limitations there. And actually some of the, there's some nice energy and some groups in our community too that have formed to do this work. So I've been in touch with them, with at least one of them, and people contact me all the time. So the good news there is that when we do deploy that kind of, whatever you want to call it, task force, focus group, whatever it might be, we have a lot of energy there. And we're actually, you go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, I was going to ask, are you thinking it will happen sometime this spring, or is it something that's going to be postponed until summer when the school year's over? Or do you have any sense of that?
I don't know. I'm thinking of that slide we had up about reasonable expectations of the future. Yeah. So there's my desire is to do it very soon. It's time. I'm not sure. I don't know. And I don't say that answer very often. I don't know when.
Yep. That's why I asked, because I know you have a lot on your plate right now. So I was curious. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.
So I wanted to share with the group too. Earlier, actually, I have no concept of time. I have no idea when this was, but MASC has a one of their groups is the diversity group, and so they had their first meeting with their new officers, and I attended as a participant, just to see what was going on. And it's a small group right now, but they talked about looking at updating workshops and sharing information about updating curriculum and professional development with the eyes towards diversity, inclusion, and anti-racism. So I think that if any of us want to be involved with this group, I think that it's a good avenue for us to kind of see what other school committee specific activities and work can be going on across the state.
Yeah.
Do you mind sending that information out, Linda? I think I'm seeing a lot of head shaking and myself, saying, yes, I'm interested, so we can share with our subcommittee.
Yeah, absolutely. And I had just gotten the information about it from being on the list server, being on the email list for MASC. They had sent it out as one of their field group. I forget exactly what they call it, but just that it was going to be a meeting and all were welcome to join. So I'll send that along too, though.
Great.
That's great. Sometimes some of those emails gets lost in all the hundreds of emails we get. Any other comments, new items for next agenda? If not, then we can take a motion to adjourn. But if there's new items, please let us know so we can add it to the agenda for next week if there's anything to discuss.
I think Linda has something.
Go ahead.
I did, and then I thought better of it. I think maybe not next meeting, but once at some point, I think we should look at the anti-bullying policy that we have, since we have the updated bullying prevention and intervention plan. I think we need to make sure that they're speaking to each other.
Yeah.
But I don't know if when that will make sense to do. So a future, maybe not next agenda. I don't know.
That sounds good.
I actually had a question about that. Actually, you reminded me of that. Is the bullying intervention plan? Did we? I know we had a question if we had to read it once or twice at a meeting, and you may have resolved that at the meeting that I missed. Is it enacted, or do we have to have a second reading of it?
No, it's enacted.
It is enacted. Okay.
Yeah, I had to say that clearly. Yep, it is.
Okay. Thank you. I'm sorry I missed that the last meeting.
That's okay.
I got to witness my kids. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, you're good. What's up?
I was just going to say, I got to witness both of my kids get the anti-bullying training during remote school this week, and it was pretty great to hear.
Very good.
Good.
That is.
One thing I will say is our new Project 351 ambassadors that you meet on the 26th will get that playbook training that I know Member Gustafson mentioned. And then
awesome.
I'm getting playbook certified, so I'll be able to bring that back here too.
Yeah. So I'm glad they're doing that this year. I wasn't sure how they were doing it virtually, but that's my son was involved in that last year, although it was interrupted. They didn't get to the fun part, but he had a great experience, and it sounded like it was a really great perspective and opportunity to connect with other kids. So that's great around these issues.
Yeah, it's being run a little differently this year, where the playbook trainers will train the new ambassadors for the ambassadors to bring back to their school. But I'll be able to train the 5 ambassadors, and then I'll be able to guide them through the program. So we'll be able to get that going, hopefully within the district this year.
Yeah, that is really great.
So I'm really, really sorry, because I know that it was hard for us to land on Thursdays. I really want to be involved, but I have a class that's going to be every Thursday until July.
I'm okay with moving off of Thursdays. I don't know if others have openings.
Yeah.
Yeah, with enough notice, I can. I'm also teaching a few classes, but
yeah, I have to check
month.
too, because I believe mine's are on Mondays and Wednesdays. Let me check.
Oh, boy.
Let me check. Yeah, mine's are Mondays and Wednesdays. Does Tuesdays seem to work for everyone?
Usually.
Except the third Tuesday. I have a meeting every third Tuesday.
Okay.
But other than that, I'm good.
But is February 2nd too early or should we do February 9th?
I cannot do February 2nd. I have a medical procedure that day, so.
And I cannot do the 9th, unfortunately.
And the third Tuesday doesn't work, so that leaves us with the 23rd.
Wow. Okay.
Could we bump it up to January 26th, or is that really short?
Yeah.
Well, I'm not sure if it gives everyone time to read through what they have. They volunteer to read through and compare.
Yeah, they don't want to.
I mean,
I'm sorry, guys. I'm really sorry.
No. I guess my thought is, I mean, I don't know. I'm thinking. I mean, we probably honestly will not get through every section of it by the next meeting. So if there is a day that works that week, I mean, we could start with one section and move to another. Like, I know the 26th will be tricky for me because I have budget stuff next week, and some other life things. But maybe it's great for another section, and we'll only get through part of it. It'll probably take us a few meetings to get through them all. So,
Right.
How many of us is quorum?
4.
Okay,
Quorum's
so
4.
we could. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. So if I miss the next one with sad and heavy heart, then maybe after that we could not schedule a Thursday until after July.
That would
we
work.
Keep things the way they are. Okay. I don't want to mess
So
it
we
up.
want to keep it to the
I'm saying
4th,
it.
and then our next meeting start on Tuesdays.
Yeah, that sounds like a good solution, or a workable solution. Not an ideal solution, but
No, I'll miss you guys. I'm sorry.
we'll miss having you.
It's all right. We all have conflicts that come up from time to time. So,
Right.
like I did
For
last
a
time.
good cause, though. It's a trauma and resiliency coaching class. So.
Ooh,
Fabulous.
that's pretty
Very
important.
helpful. Yeah. I just have to keep business and finance from meeting on the same night as us, and I'm good. But that seems to happen all the time. So for now, I'm good.
Is that everything?
Okay.
So.
Thank you. So are we wrapping up at this point? Okay.
I can make a motion to adjourn.
Adjourn?
I think
Second.
that
Awesome. Let's go down the list. Member Gustafson,
Yes.
Member Bennett,
Yes.
Member Woodland,
Yep.
Member Kirschenbaum,
yes.
Member Longbelial,
Yes.
and I vote yes. You guys are awesome. You guys even finished before 8:30.
Look at that.
And I thought I was
We're
going to be pushing for that.
We're efficient.